Out of the depth of his love, we came to know the love of God. Out of the depth of his wisdom, we came to sense the wisdom of God. Out of the field of his power, we touched the universal power of God. And it was in our knowledge of him that we began to expand the force field of the divine gnosis. I am come then this day to bring you the rapture of his love afresh, a kindling in your hearts, a new sense of his wisdom and of his power. The vanities and illusions of the world, the cries of the senses, may attempt to shut out his majesty and the flame of his covenant, but they cannot. They have no power, for there is no power but God that can act. And I recall how that as he healed the man with the withered hand, that a new light came into the eyes of every one of his band, and all who were with him took on the glow of his mastery over energy. He said, "Stretch forth thy hand," and it was made whole. And it was the power of God that functioned through him. And it was the love of God that bore compassion to the hearts of men. And it is this love alive still, that always will still all of mankind's negative attitude, and will give them their freedom from pain and from fear, and their mastery over substance. As this day I come to you in this 20th century, across the span of the years, bearing the continuity of being and immortal life, I tell you that you are fortunate indeed to have this inheritance. Although the holy grail of man's consciousness of the Christ has been lost and misplaced and searched for but not found, the spirit of his covenant has remained within it. And in whatsoever place the head of the Lord layeth, there is the beauty of holiness and the breastplate of his righteousness. When the old borders are restored once again to the world, and the world is made to know the higher simplicity of life, they will then be practicing that simplicity with diligence and gladness. They will recognize the meaning of progress in a return to the purity of their being. Today, blessed ones, mankind so frequently feel that the marks of progress are in the accumulation of outer symbology of attainment, without recognizing the great power of spiritual qualification within the heart. I tell you, blessed ones, no matter how humble the exterior, no matter what the shape or form may appear to be, if within that chamber of being, whether rude in appearance or beautiful, the spirit of immortal beauty dwells, then all is well. For it is in the knowing of the Christ that mankind leap into the arms of God as an infant Messiah themselves. For they spring forth as fresh arrows from the bow of immortality, to make their own mark upon the infinite screen of God's purity and beauty, of things to come, of that which shall be, as well as that which was. For this great law is that law which was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be. No complacency can stir your souls, but the pristine purity and meaning of God's intent can stir them as it did our own, until his flame leaps from bush to bush, and the whole forest is aflame with his love. And this is not the flame that consumes outer substance, but it is the flame that consumes the being of man with the desire to blend the allness of individuality with the unity of his thought and nature. And as the nature of man gives itself once again unto the great eternal plan, the Christ moveth forth into the arena of life, and is victor in all who, submitting themselves unto him, know that he is come again in them, ready to renew the battle of life, and to prove unto all mankind that God acts in man, to renew strength, to discover undreamed of virtues, great reservoirs of power, courage, and fortitude that shall overcome all appearances, and shall show to all that God is the victor in the small victories of men that win for them the fullness of their release from outer forms of bondage, and comfort them each day with the immortal friendship that does not fade away, but is forevermore the hand of God extended to man. The ancient covenant, the great divine plan, secure and pure and radiant and lovely. This Christ image I knew. This Christ image I am. This Christ image are you. This Christ image are all men. I say to you then, be at peace. Be of good cheer. Take his cup in your hand and drink the cup of his plan of mastery of spiritual adventure, of high courage, of infinite wonder, of love for child and flower and tree, and even the tiny little fairy being that animates the outer envelopes of nature. Rejoice in elemental life, in the life of man, and in the life of the angels. For in this union of the 3 times 3, the higher kingdoms will manifest for thee, not only in the land of the free, but all over the planet. All over the planet and in the hearts of its people. And darkness and shadow shall retreat into the caves of the earth, there to be annihilated by the great blinding white light of the Son of Suns, coming to earth again in each succeeding generation and age to fulfill the destiny of life without end. I knew him then, I know him now. I am your brother as I am his. I thank you. I am Gabriel, who stand in the presence of God. Long ago sent forth unto Mary, I come then this day, bearing the immaculate concept for every woman, man, and child, that they may bring forth the mastery of their energies in this day, and offer them upon the altar of being in the service of the great light and the unfolding of the coming Messiah, that to every man is the Christ of his own being. The fullness of this realization, born of old in the heart of God, in the great universal consciousness that has but lately begun to dawn in the minds of mankind, must in this day and age swing to full fruition the great hopes of the planetary salvation, whereby mankind shall understand the meaning of the ancient call of the Magnificat, the words, He hath brought down the mighty from their seats, and hath exalted them of low degree, that all men might understand that the mountains shall be brought down unto the valleys, and that the valleys shall be raised up, until all of being is one vast sky and one great plain, where all mankind come under the fatherhood of God and the acknowledgement of the sole reality of their whole being, that this great unfolding radiance, the divine regency, may be bestowed upon all, whereby they may rule in the house of God forever, abiding as kings and priests, consecrated to the service of the Most High God, that women may understand the meaning of the holy matrix, that mankind may understand the meaning of holiness itself, that all may be brought under the power of the Holy Spirit, and that grace be multiplied upon earth, so that the purity of God, symbolized by the radiant lily which I am holding in my hand as I stand here in your midst, may shine forth into the hearts of mankind as a symbol of the purity of the light, not the outer consciousness, which itself has brought a complete reversal of the divine intent into the consciousness of men, but rather the inner action of the sacred flame flowers, known to the angels as well as to the archangels, that the power of immortality may come into men's consciousness here and now, and that they understand the meaning thereof in the deepest recesses of their being, drawing forth the power of light that overcomes all outer conditions and enables them to establish the immaculate purity of Mary in their consciousness here and now. O blessed ones, it does not matter what outer conditions may have held sway in your worlds in past times, if you will only accept here and now and for all time to come that you can be overcomers of all outer conditions less than the purity of the great light, that you can receive the fullness of the immaculate seed of God within your heart, the great seed of light that shall grow in the garden of the Lord until it adorns the fullness of His plan for this planetary body and enables freedom to come not only to each individual but also to the entire planet, honoring the name of Christ and the power of His virtue, which has never been stained by human ignorance or human vice, because the great power of the immaculate concept has held it inviolate, so that all outer actions of mankind could not serve in the great purity of God's consciousness to alter that consciousness one iota. The archangels are well aware of the presence of purity in the Godhead. We are also aware of the presence of purity in the spirit of the resurrection. And we know the great role that purity plays in the immortality of mankind. For so long as there is in consciousness a sense of stain that prevents mankind from entering in to the fullness of their Christ victory, they cannot understand the meaning of all of the laws of life so long as they have the sense of stain and the sense of sin holding sway in their consciousness. Only by recognizing then and paying allegiance to their own immortal being and the lily of consecration, which enables them to envision the heavenly fragrance as it enfolds them round about, can they recognize that there is no other reality, that there is no other power, that there is no other condition that has any permanence whatsoever, by contrast, than the pure, radiant God design of their own being. When womankind understand this and consecrate themselves to this power, they bring forth within their consciousness the infant Messiah, the Holy Christ of their own being, and this man-child expands in them and comes to the point where he is able to consort with the theologians and doctors in the temple, and they understand that even their thoughts themselves are illumined by the power of Christ, and they are taught, God-taught and self-taught, by the radiant power of their own Holy Christ self, right within their own consciousness of theology and theological conceptions. And they recognize the superiority of the inner tutor who is able to guide them. Then, as the man-child expands still further, he enables all to take dominion over outer conditions and to bring to the world the fullness of the mission that is their own, whereby they enter into the heart of God and become one through the divine Christos, the universal Christ, one with God, and are able therefore to have the self-same glow ray which descended upon him, descend upon them, and all, both male and female, bond and free, are able to become servants of God, co-equal in every sense with the regenerate Christ, for they are completely identified with the purity of that Christ consciousness and not at all identified with outer form and human nonsense. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the hour is very close at hand for many individuals to come into a more complete understanding of the universal mysteries of regeneration, that they may receive, as St. Francis and many others through the ages, the great spiritual power that will give them their victory and the understanding of the Christ Mass. I call to your attention then the universal power that radiates forth to everyone who will accept it, the Annunciation. I am Gabriel, who stand in the presence of God, invoking in all the divine presence, the holy man-child, the seed of God immaculately conceived, that by this expansion, by the expansion of the seed of God within the matrix of human consciousness, all may come to know the one true God and the one Son of God, the light of God, that the great Word that went forth and became flesh may also become flesh in all, that all be consecrated anew to the Christ Mass, to the spirit of Christmas, to the understanding of universal love, to the holy tone known by the archangels and established forever in the kingdom of God without end, where happiness and joy and purity surround all that in the world is so far less, and bring to that which is less the kingdom of the greater one, the radiant sun within the sun, and behind the sun, the shining one who of old sent forth his fiats, and behold, the worlds were framed by them. I say to you all, the love of God and the love of heaven, the love of the angels and the love of the archangels is real. I say to you all that the angels over the world are manifesting a greater and greater attunement with mankind, with the children, yea, but also with those who are older but are still children of God. And therefore the great light and wisdom of God cometh down to all, that you may recognize your right to challenge even the angelic host as to whether or not we are indeed of the light. For we require that you also shall understand that we are of your fellow servants, the prophets, and those who serve to amplify the power of good. And the knee and the consciousness should be bowed only unto God, your own mighty I Am presence. And therefore none of us would have you adore us, but only adore the great presence of life that gave us all birth. Rejoice then in his eternal coming, the coming of the Great One, the coming of the eternal ones, the coming of the cosmic beings, the coming to fruition in you all of the great purpose for which you first drew breath. I say to you all, as I take my leave of you, cherish and guard this holy moment, cherish and guard this holy concept, cherish and guard the immaculate concept, cherish and guard the radiance that you have received, cherish and recognize what purity means, cherish the lily of the sacred fire, cherish God's desire, cherish all that is the will of God, cherish heaven itself, and behold, charity shall surround you itself, and you shall be exalted until you stand in that great illumined presence, without end and without beginning, one out of many, who hath made of many one. I thank you, for I am come this day from out the sun, and the light of the dawn has sped forth to noontime and beyond, and the day is far spent. Let all recognize then the need of this hour. Thank you, and good afternoon. blessed ones, out of Egypt have I called my son. This word gone forth of old, ancient, prophetical, the fulfillment of the ancient records of Akasha, did symbolize that out of a land which men have considered pagan and darkened came forth the one illustrious Son of God. And so out of human bondage, I say, shall come forth into divine freedom and the ritual of the ascension a multitude of souls whose hopes and aspirations have not been wedded to matter and substance, but to the disciplines of the Spirit and those essential acts of virtue which encompass man round about with his own divinity, holy strands of the immortal garment being woven by each penetration of the shuttle, moving from the right unto the left and from the left unto the right. For men must learn out of the most adverse conditions to bring forth victory, and disciplines of the Spirit must be established in all, else they should perish, as it were, in the midst of human confusion and darkness. When the great light that came forth in Egypt expanded in the heart of the Christ, taught in the ancient temples, for he came unto us, it came to pass that he walked into the land of Palestine, holding a spiritual staff, the staff of the shepherd king, and bringing to mankind in that day a renewal of the ancient messages, couched in the language of the people, and bearing a timeless record of assistance to this planet. For to the present hour, the childlike concepts which he epitomized and advocated are a forte of salvation unto the earth. For example, the concept, unless ye become as a little child, ye shall not enter in, speaketh unto mankind of the shedding of the brittle concepts of man's intellect and the acceptance in heart and mind of the essential factors of immortal goodness. Men must recognize the most scientific achievements in a spiritual manner are made possible for the advancing disciple and chela. But unless each individual shall come through the doorway of simplicity, the acceptance of the essential and first principles of cosmic virtue, he will not be able to manipulate the necessary spiritual functions of life so that he can be master of his world. You see, precious ones, so long as there is a thought of evil in the consciousness of man, it becomes an impediment against the manipulation of his own mastery. The forces of light wielded by the ascended masters and intended to be conveyed to mankind require purity of consciousness, require purity of heart, require an immaculate vision. Otherwise, the individual will, of course, color their acts by human thoughts centered around themselves. For individuals are very self-orientated and require to understand the meaning of the great law of mercy, which droppeth as a gentle rain from heaven above upon the earth beneath. The double blessing of mercy coming forth to mankind will tell him the essential facts of his being, how that not immortality and the finite world is his freedom, but in the dropping descent
of his divinity and the power of requalification of the essence of God that comes forth into the pure chambers of being for the purposes of ennobling man and exalting him into the immortal concepts of eternity. You must understand the meaning of E, for the letter E, holding the thought of energy and of essence, is itself the power of God, the potential of every man. Eternity, then, holding the power of the infinite forever, cannot be entered into until finite man has cast off the dregs of darkness and put upon himself the garments of light. For we cannot give eternal life unto that which is impure. To do so would be to pollute the stream of the eternal presence of life. And this can never be. And therefore the veil between matter and spirit cannot be wholly rent in twain, except through the mediatorship of the light of God that never fails, and the ark of the covenant held within the Holy of Holies must be removed from the decaying temple of those who do not respect or understand or comprehend the Godhead, and restored unto those who have accepted by the initiatic process the regeneration of their being, accepting then the great laws of eternity and of life as prima facie evidence not only of the existence of God in the universe, but of the existence of God within themselves. It is a great travesty, precious ones, upon the laws of life, that many students of the laws of life and of spiritual teachings do not themselves practice the spiritual arts in their everyday living, but seem to be content to ever acquire more knowledge thereof without putting into practice the first and essential principles. I am calling then to your attention today that many of the ascended masters are required by the manifestation of the great law to continually remind mankind of those first principles, and this is a correct act from our level, in order that we may produce awareness in the students, so that the karmic responsibility for which they are charged by reason of their knowledge shall not accrue to them in an untoward manner, but rather shall assist them in the full manifestation of their latent divinity according to their levels of comprehension, assisting them daily then in finding some element of their freedom, and in recognizing that there is a veritable shower of radiance descending upon them constantly. At times this seems too slow to a mere trickle, because they qualify that substance so rapidly by the elements of the outer world that there is no manifestation of the pristine power of the descending radiance of the Godhead. Now, when mankind shall recognize the law, paying allegiance to it with the breaking of the morning's early light, and shall qualify from that hour unto the end of their day, when they fall to sleep and rest in the arms of Morpheus, in a most delicate and holy spiritual manner, they will find that the night side of life will manifest certain elements of their victory, because they have qualified the day side of life with the purity of God during the time of the enfolding matrix. For the daylight hours are the weaving of the matrix for the night side of life, when the spirit of man, freed from the fetters of human imagination and the outer symbols of unregenerate energy, enter into the purity of the Godhead, attaining to and finding admittance in some cases to the temples of the masters at inner levels, where they are able to find not the complacency of the human, but the pure radiance of the light of God that never fails, surging forth from the very forte of the ascended masters, as they bring forth their radiance like the beams of a giant searchlight, penetrating into the darkened recesses of the imagination and mind of man, and bringing forth the culprit that has caused them so much distress throughout the ages, and showing them how to weave their own strands of essential freedom by their day-to-day and hour-to-hour and moment-by-moment thoughts. Then I say, let us awake, precious ones, to the realization of the energy potential of the day side of life, that you do not accept the pressures of your environment so much as you do the radiance of your spiritual self as it rushes forth with the pure stream of God's holy energy into the chalice of your heart to feed your mind with the illumined substance of the Christ radiance in manifestation. Then I think that your ascension will not be a thing of the remote and distant future, but will manifest from day to day as ascending energy currents, so that you will quite naturally enter into the vibratory action of the risen and regenerate Christ, finding in the ancient priesthood of Melchizedek the awareness of your own being in this contemporary hour among those with whom you are associated, finding then in them the essential elements of spiritual goodness which are found in the retreats of the ascended masters, manifesting in both Chela and master alike. When this is brought down into the environment of your daily world, you will find that your raison d'etre will come full circle, and you will understand that your freedom is at hand. Your freedom is in the appearance of the Christ, and the Christ must appear in the rising energies of your mind and heart from day to day. And those disciplines of the Spirit which will enable you to say no to human reason when it attempts to tell you that you must have a certain amount of human fun in order to have life and happiness. I tell you that in spiritual joy there is that completeness which can never be supplied by outer action. And I think it is high time that mankind be aware of their responsibility toward the spiritual side of life, else they shall continue in a realm of human bondage. And the statement made not only of the Christ of old, but of all, out of Egypt have I called my son, will be brought full circle to this realization, that in the ancient temple of Luxor there is the ascension current rising with all of its beauty and spiritual power, ministered unto by the priests of the ascension flame, and the great hum of their joy can be heard throughout the earth. Know then that in every land where the darkened concepts of the brothers of the shadow have extended themselves, that there are also in existence great foci of light, radiant centers of pure spiritual power, whose light shall never wane. Put thy attention upon these centers of light, and withdraw it from those who are darkened individuals who have not yet comprehended the first essential principles of life. Although they may be possessed with great knowledge, of these St. Peter spoke, saying that they are clouds without water, vessels emptied of the intended fullness. I say to you then, the disciplines of the Spirit that shall accomplish the regeneration of your being and give you your ascension into immortality must be imposed by your free will. Will you welcome us? Will you invite us? Will you accept the lash of our consciousness as we spur you to your divine realization? Then do so, and that which thou doest, as it was spoken to Iscariot of old at the last communion, do quickly. Realize then is spoken to thee, for all that betrayest thy holy Christ self must itself come for recognition to the altar of God, and the 30 pieces of silver for which men have sold themselves will one day be offered back to the high priest in the great living temple, and men will say, I have betrayed my master and my Lord for a mere paltry outer expression. Accept then your freedom and know that I am with you to assist you to the very end, to the finding of your own ascension current and your immortal rise in the power of God's radiant light of hope, the star now dawning and coming into the brightness of illumination as the angelic hosts bring forth, previous to the Christmas season, a new resurgence of the Christ radiance for the planetary body, in hope that some of this, precious ones, and I speak in your vernacular, will rub off upon mankind. Our blessings of the ascension flame to all. I thank you and bid you a radiant good afternoon.
As I meditated upon the purpose of this meeting this eve, I decided that I would also add my energies to those of beloved El Morya and speak to those of you who have known me for many a year of the cheerful news that I have observed the record of many of the advanced chelas of light with considerable happiness of recent date, for I have noted an intense concentration of the power of faith in many. But I have also noted that others remain, as it were, in a groove or a rut, as you call it. I urge, therefore, that everyone who has become complacent or afraid, either one, shall recognize that the future must be inscribed by the pen of your own holy energies. And if you will receive from God the precious gifts which he holds in abeyance for many of you, you must continue to do the necessary acts that will win for you your freedom. It is not trite, precious ones, to consider
the needs of men. And as we decided this eve on coming here, the three of us, we determined that we should fulfill the necessity of this hour, not catering particularly or specifically to any one individual, but to the needs of the group and for purposes of synthesization. And therefore, we have taken a specific action on the inner, which has not so much manifested without as within. And that action will not be completely apparent this evening, although you have received a tremendous cosmic blessing. But it will manifest in future days. For some it will manifest in a more abundant manner because of the power of their faith. To those who entertain doubts or have entertained doubts, of course, there will be a somewhat aborted harvest of lesser dimensions. But strangely enough, because of the faith of many in this place, there is no one that shall go away empty or bereft of some degree of blessing. Now then, precious ones, I would say unto you, before I leave you, that there is an uphill pull which stands before you. For many of you, for many a year, have served the great light in holy faith, that you have reached a point upon the mountain where the very summit of accomplishment and attainment is before you. When this occurs, as most of you know who are familiar with climbs up hills and inclines of the world, the last portion is often a bit more difficult than the first, for the scenery itself sometimes changes. And as you journey up the mountain, you leave behind you the verdure and the greenery. You leave behind you the still flowing streams upon the level surface, and you find yourselves among the crags and the rocks, and you seem more alone and apart, for the few are they who attain to the summit. I say unto you all then, that you must recognize that in this uphill pull toward attainment is the measure of your victory, and it is in those final efforts that you make the significant accomplishment for which you originally embraced all of the teachings of the ascended masters. Therefore it is most vital and essential that you understand the meaning behind the precious words released by Mother Mary to you this night, that you understand the admonishments and the intense lashing, as it were, of Master Morya, which he put forth by his radiant first-ray energies, in order that he might encompass you round about with a specific action to give you the necessary push toward your own freedom. You are aware, of course, that even a newborn infant receives a slap in order to bring it the power to usher it forth into life. And I think also that it is justifiable homicide, if it be so, that we also ought to give you, if necessary, a tiny pat upon the back, which will assist you in recognizing that you must not now rest upon your oars. You must not now feel that you have a freedom that is not yet attained, although within your grasp. For unless the final push be made, then all of the efforts which have been made in the past are yet in vain. For it is not necessary, and it is extremely foolish, for individuals who have long striven for attainment to now deny the very power that has given them so much joy throughout the years. I would point out to you that in these United States there is now in existence one specific student in the state of New Mexico who, having embraced St. Germain for many years and given him a tremendous, radiant outpouring of love, has now repudiated me, for I am speaking to you. And I choose to identify myself for those of you who did not recognize me. I am indeed Le Comte du Gabalis, known to you as St. Germain. And I am speaking to you of this student tonight, that you may make special calls for his soul and being. This individual who has followed for many a year the pathway of light, has now repudiated and denied the existence of the ascended masters. And this then is a verification to you of that which can occur to those who reach a certain measure of attainment, and then, because the mirror of cosmic revealment is not actually before them, do not know how close they are to their attainment or the measure of their own victory or progress. And therefore, they slip aside, as it were, from all of the measured beat of victory that they have initiated in the past, and return into the spirit of the dark ages of fear and distrust, and go down under the burden of their own human necessity. Human bondage and human creation take their toll, and so hope flies out the window. Now I say to all of you, lest you suffer a like fate, that you must recognize that you will be tested more as you near the very summit of attainment than you ever were tested before. And the fullness of your victory is close at hand when the tests come thick and fast. For as travail upon a woman with child, so it is with those who stand ready to be ushered into the kingdom of immortality. The pangs of this birth are worth all of the effort that you make, and I think also that you will agree with me then, after you have attained, if you do not now. And I trust that you will pledge to me tonight a renewal of your heart and your head and your hand in behalf of the cosmic service of the light, that you may find the power of your victory is indeed resurging through the very fount of your being, coming up from the fountains of the deep and giving you a renewal of the great faith in God and the Holy Spirit, the ascended masters, the cosmic masters, and the victory of beloved Jesus. There are many books that have been written that have denied the attainment of beloved Jesus and others of the ascended masters. I tell you, blessed ones, these books and words have no power except mankind accept it into the consciousness of their world as reality. And if they do, they shall deal with that energy at another time. And they will find that by accepting it into their world, they have lost rather than won a precious laurel wreath of freedom and victory. Ladies and gentlemen, may I bestow upon your hearts a crown of renewed hope for the victory of every student that has ever served the light of God that does not fail. May that light beam forth then from your hearts and continue in the clasp of your hand with one another as purity and friendship and peace, expressed not only to God and to the cosmic masters, but to your fellow man as integrity and purity and diligence and continuation in the mighty tides that shall mean your eternal freedom. I thank you and bless you and bid you adieu.
Boundless is the power of mastery. Mighty is the tide of life that flows. Few are given the opportunity to reckon with the mighty radiance of the Most High as it streams forth to give to the weary travelers the power of the beacon light of God. And so, Blessed Mother Mary has spoken to you this night of cosmic faith. I am come this night to strengthen your bond of affection for the ascended masters, and to make you aware of the fact that no reverent moment, no moment of devotion is ever in vain, nor are any of the acts which mankind perform in the fullness of cosmic faith, whether by the power of sight or by the power of holy truth, held in full faith in vain. For God, in his mighty tide of reckoning, does record every act, and there are none so blind as those who will not see the handwriting upon the wall, which they themselves have recorded there, both now and in past ages. When mankind desire to escape from the very recordings which they have made upon the screen of life, they seek to attach the blame for the records to another and not unto themselves. This is without purpose, for I have found that the karmic lords are not swayed by human reason, but by the power of cosmic love. Let me then urge upon all the understanding of God's laws, which are not always fashioned in the likeness of men or their similitude, but are patterns of radiant perfection and wonderment. Mankind are often garbed in false raiment. They would deceive even the masters in their thoughts, and they would deceive also their own selves. They must then shed these concepts of deceit and calumny, of blame and false courage. They must recognize that only the brave and the true shall establish victory within the force field of their identity. The voice of human reason is often arrayed against the cosmic hosts and the power of the heavenly laws, but it has no power, for the laws of man shall fall and shatter in pieces as a potter's vessel when standing face to face with the mighty power of the cosmic council. Now I say to you that let there be one soul in the midst of a place where I am speaking in this wise, who doubts the veracity of the mighty law by which I am able to come, and you do cast a stone in a rude manner into the temple to shatter the chalice and matrix of the force field of light. I say then, hold to the power of cosmic faith, and the miraculous radiation of God will bring to your tarnished receptacle a luster and brilliance for which your soul craves. The spoilers among men would always seek to find fault. Far they be themselves from perfection and the gates of heaven, yet they would hinder those who would press therein, having offered the fullest measure of themselves, and standing ready to balance their karma. These individuals are taken by angelic hands and led as weary travelers to the refreshing fount of God's holy will. Others, imbued with lesser concepts, deserve a switching
And this they shall receive from their own hand, when alone and bereft of hope they stand face to face with the barren desert of their selfhood. I say to all then, the hour of compassion for one another must be externalized by cosmic love. This is the will of God, not that men should bear burdens upon their backs which are of their own creation, but that they should cast them down into the sacred fire and call for their transmutation. For it is against heaven's own reason for men generation after generation to stoop almost to the earth with the heavy burdens which they have forged, when the burden of the Christ would transmute all into light and holiness. The way to the temple, the way to peace, the way to purity is before the eye, as beloved Vista spoke this morning, and mankind ought to open their eyes and not grope as in darkness for the door that leadeth to life eternal. I say to you, mankind of earth, awake. Tonight, mighty cosmic forces are swirling all around you. The power of the universe bursts within you. The power of the atom surges forth, and yet men are concerned with cats and mewings in the night and the animal nature of man. I say, let us lay aside these doleful concepts that have robbed mankind of peace, and let mankind arise with fervor in his heart and purity in his mind, crowned with the holy light of celestial wisdom, and cast aside the chains which he has forged. For the Lord has sent forth deliverance, and the deliverance of God is within the spirit of man. But acknowledgment has not been paid, and yet by the power of acknowledgment, those that have strayed shall find themselves reestablished in the old borders, in the old boundaries, and that which seems old will be renewed, and lightness of spirit and buoyancy will replace the bane of shadowed substance. I say unto you, the time has come when wholeness of spirit shall be prized more and more, and the insane burdens shall be cast down as dust beneath the feet, and men shall place sandals of light with wings of purity upon their feet, and the message of victory shall go forth, and the Christ shall be honored, and the eyes shall be cast down that have not served a useful purpose, and the vision shall be enhanced by the spiritual dream of God, and men shall know the stillness of cosmic reason. I say to you, the quickening power of the Lord of the first ray hath gone forth this night, and my appeal is to bolster up the appeal of Mother Mary, for we have cooperated this night in creating in cosmically flaming youth the concepts of that overcoming faith which will cast aside the burdens of yesterday and establish the power of victory in the present hour, until the morrow shall bring forth the radiance of the mirror of purity and wisdom, which Mother Mary caused to be brought here this eve, saturated with the substance of jade, the purifying power which God has directed here in the holy name of mercy. Ladies and gentlemen, I bid you adieu.
O compassionate ones, as I come, filled with longing to see divine grace multiplied in thy being, as in the being of my Son, Jesus. I breathe upon you, in his name, the fragrance of his thoughts since his ascension in the light. And I come with a message of compassion to those who, in striving for perfection, have grown weary of the seeming task that lies ahead. I say to you, the turmoil of the world and the conditions of mankind's consciousness are such that all who have ever contacted the teachings of beloved Saint Germain and the radiance of beloved Jesus ought to summon, if necessary, with the last jot of their life's energy, the continuing courage to continue in well-doing and in serving the holy cause. Heaven does not favor one individual above another, but individuals do favor God and themselves by so doing, and thus what we may call the edge of difference comes into manifestation in man's being. And some are granted visions and the power to see the light streaming down from their divine presence, whereas others must walk by faith and not by sight. I say to all that the age of reason and the age of innocence must unite so that men will not stumble upon the spiritual pathway and bring themselves upon the thorny way. For the cause of all human distress, blessed ones, lies vested in mankind's ignorance of the law and his concentration upon his individual self or ego, rather than upon the mastery of his divine presence. Would you then this day know the power of freedom? Would you feel the great surge of the God flame pass through your being as it did to quicken the body and being of my beloved Son upon that resurrection morn, when the mighty flame of regeneration surged through his precious heart to thrill the universe with the flame of resurrection? You, precious ones, today need not abide in the consciousness of death, for it has been written, O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? Today,
the mighty power of regeneration that moved through my Son remains in the atmosphere for all to claim. And I remind you of Enoch, the seventh from Adam, who was not, for God took him. I remind you of cosmic possibilities, which if not fostered and nurtured in spirit, may not of necessity manifest in fact. Precious ones, you as individuals, as God flames, occupying a physical body and wearing a coat of skins, must be aware that the immortal, regenerative power of life is focused within the force field of your being. If then you will pay allegiance to this flame, death need have no power over you. For the destructive energies of death and the records thereof have brought needless fear to the minds of men. And you have a saying in your world that the brave die but once, whereas the cowards die thousands of times. And yet it is not needful for men to die even once, for no man liveth unto himself. For the strength of sin and the strength of the law through the resurrection flame can overcome the sting of death and remove it for each individual. And now I call upon the angels of the resurrection to bring here tonight the great cosmic mirror, which is known in the secret archives of the resurrection temple. This mirror, saturated with the presence of jade and the color of green, is a purifying substance. And many have stood before this mirror after passing from the screen of life and been given a glimpse of the reality of their immortal soul, their memory of the life that is God, and its initial pulsation through the force field of their identity. When you say, I am the resurrection and the life, it is no ordinary action, blessed ones, but it is the self-same power of regeneration that stirred in the heart of my Son and is in the heart of everyone, yet sorely neglected by many. Oh, precious ones, if you will only heed the word and recognize in faith that all things are possible with God, you will be able to summon the faith that can translate you into the self-same Spirit that raised my Son into his glorious eternal victory. Precious ones, may I remind you of an action that takes place. May I remind you how that individuals vacillate in their faith. May I remind you how that in the great rarity of true cosmic hope, men are temporarily imbued with understanding of the great law, and they glimpse within their own consciousness upon truth, immortal and victorious. Then, as they come into a place separate from the group with whom they were associated when their faith was buoyed up, and they seem to feel a sense of aloneness, And the voice of the tempter speaketh unto them. Their faith evaporates and fades away to a moment of doubt. They chastise themselves for this moment of doubt and resummon their faith. And so it comes to pass that the errant ones return to the path of faith. But the tempter is not silent. His voice, in a testing manner, continues to compel them to listen as he whispers to them words of doubt, distrust, and fear. And so faith flies from the soul. And then the shadow of mortal concepts replaces the wonders of divine love and faith. And strength is gone from the soul, and the test has not been passed. When these moments occur, individuals must reckon with their own acts of weakness in permitting the foolishness of human concepts to mar the beauty of the grand design of faith. And so tonight, as I am speaking to you, I am calling to Archangel Michael to descend with his blue legions and to surround you with the power of faith in action here. Well done. Now it may surprise you, precious ones, to know that a treat is in store for you this eve, a cosmic treat for the love of heaven, for your faith and the strength of your being is indeed great. And in admonishing you concerning the building of faith, I do not decry that manifestation of faith which many of you have continued year after year to exhibit, but I point out the subtleties of doubt that have momentarily crept in to men's consciousness. And I tell you, precious ones, that it is these moments of doubt that mar the manifestation of the perfect design and cause you to stand aside when the goal of the ascension is very near, when the precious offerings of God are at the very door. It is your own vain doubts, for vain they are, that stop the manifestation of the requirement of the hour. Therefore I come tonight with admonishment to urge you to have that faith which my son knew so well and by which he obtained his victory. By having and retaining that faith, I say unto you that you shall be overcomers over all things human and enter in to the fullness of that which is divine. May I drop my mantle of cosmic love upon your hearts this night in the full feeling of a cosmic mother, for you are all God's children. May you also embody his mighty quality of faith in the word that goeth forth. I thank you, for there are others who would speak this night to stir your souls and to offer you their love.